Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Dustin Fox, Jason Lloyd, Tyvis Powell, plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Welcome into a WKYC edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I am Mikey McNuggets, and over the next 30 minutes, we are talking Browns, we are talking Cavs, we're talking Guardians. The Cavs schedule has been released, and the Cavs schedule is actually pretty favorable, all things considered. I'll tell you who and why you have to look out for coming up in just a bit. Jason?
Browns and Eagles kick off tomorrow in a preseason game. Two rookies to keep an eye on, Dylan Sampson and Harold Fannin. What should we expect to see out of the rookies in preseason game number 2? G.
As the resident defensive lineman, I'm going to get into the Browns defensive line, and if they can be dominant, just how good could the Cleveland Browns be this year? We'll talk about it coming up. And
guys, CJ Kayfus has been up in the majors for 2 weeks, and the future is looking bright. We'll tell you about it.
That's coming up, but we're going to start with some reports out of joint practice in Philadelphia that indicate the Browns defensive line won the overall battle against a, albeit injured, but pretty dominant Eagles offensive line. Nathan Zegura, one of the voices of the Browns, tweeted this out yesterday. Another dominant day for the Browns D-line in Philly. That unit is going to carry this squad. They will be game wreckers. Flash Garrett, that is Myles Garrett, has been unblockable, and it's often been meeting at the quarterback. Flacco got the pass game going in the last team period, capped by a TD to Thrash. Some Philly reporters said that the unquestionable best player on the field during these joint practices was Myles Garrett. Mason Graham also reportedly looked good, G. If this Browns defensive line reaches the top of its potential, the best case scenario this upcoming season, you have the best version of Myles, Mason Graham, Mike Hall comes back, Isaiah McGuire, JTS, Alex Wright, one of those guys takes a step forward. Can the defensive line be so good that it keeps the Browns in playoff contention at least through the majority of the season? How much better can the Browns be than maybe our initial projection if that D-line truly is elite?
It's a possibility because this was a big revelation, and it's just not coming from the Cleveland Browns beat reporters and people that's out there. Philadelphia Eagles people are out there talking about how great the defense looked. Not only was they looked good, but Denzel Ward was out there looking great as well. And I've always said that the defense is what's going to carry them. When the Browns made that surprise run with 4 or 5 different quarterbacks after Deshaun Watson got hurt, with Joe Flacco leading them to the playoffs, it was all about defense. We talked about them as being not only the best defense in the game, but being historically great. And when you have Myles Garrett and he's that dominant, and you have Jim Schwartz, who is now, he has the pieces that he wants to have when it comes to the athleticism up front. Now he has guys that can rush the passer, push the passer, and the pass rush from in the side of the pocket. And he has a rotation of guys. I mean, if those guys are playing at the tip-top, peak of their forms, they can keep you in games, and they can keep you close. The question is, can they do it for a sustained period of time if they have no injuries? That's the key, Jason.
This better be the strength of the team. They've got a number 1 pick, a number 5 pick, and another top 60 pick in Mike Hall. Yes. So if that's not the strength...
And JTS was a first-round pick of Tampa Bay.
That's a great point, JTS. So if this is not the strength of the team, then something's gone terribly wrong. Can they keep them in games? Yeah. Can they throw touchdown passes?
No.
So are they going to keep them in playoff contention? No. But they could at least make parts of Browns games fun to watch. Yeah. And I'm really anxious to see what this defensive line looks like. And I think, part of what has sort of been, we haven't really discussed very much, is by beefing up the defensive tackle, can they maybe not pay as much attention to Myles? Mm-hmm. Can this free up Myles a little bit more? Possibly, Mason Graham's presence in the middle certainly should clear up the run and should shore up the run. We've seen that at times a little bit. What a force he is as a run stopper. Certainly anyone who watched the Ohio State-Michigan game saw firsthand what the devastation that he can do in the middle of the line. So I'm really curious to see Graham, what kind of player he is in the NFL. I think he'll make an immediate impact. And Myles, coming off the massive contract that he got, I've seen him in camp a couple of different days. He looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
We talked about it before, how fast he was getting off the line. He was making the Browns tackles in practice with their head on a swivel going, where'd he go? He was right here a minute ago.
Yeah.
He was right in front of me. Poor DeJuan had no shot.
And he was
against
doing
Miles.
that to the Eagles' offensive tackles, too. And those guys aren't DeJuan Jones coming off injury, learning how to play the position. Unfortunately, G, even if this defensive line is incredible, everyone reaches their potential. If you don't have a quarterback, and we don't know, maybe the Browns will, maybe Shador, maybe Dylan, maybe Joe, maybe Kenny will develop into that guy, it is really, really, really tough to win.
Yeah.
How do I know? Because I also like the New York Giants. And last year, the New York Giants, if you remember their game against the Cleveland Browns, wreaked havoc on Deshaun Watson. They have Dexter Lawrence, arguably the best defensive tackle in football. They have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, two top-end edge rushers. They just drafted Micah Parsons to add to that. Not Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter, to add to that mix. And guess what, G? Their preseason projection for wins is half a game higher than the Browns. It's the third lowest in all of football. Why? Because Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson were their quarterbacks this year and last year. The defensive line can keep you in games. It may win you a game, but it's not going to win you over the course of the season 4, 5, 6 games individually. You need that offense to step up to complement that defense. But I am incredibly excited to see maybe the best version of Miles we've ever seen and how quickly Mason Graham can make an impact.
Yeah, you're going to have to go back to do some trestle ball. You have to really get a great defensive, pass rush. You got to have the defense play lights out. But the other thing that's not going to keep the Browns in a lot of these games is the special teams. The field goal kicking has to go, and special teams has to go hand in hand with the defense. And also, no turnovers and no penalties. And the Browns have been atrocious in the last 3 to 4 years with turnovers and penalties, and that doesn't help your defense out.
Let's talk about tomorrow's preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles. In the first preseason game against Carolina, we got a heavy dose of certain rookies, but we didn't see a ton from Dylan Sampson and Harold Fannin Jr. Jason, in preseason game number 2, do you expect those two rookies to be more heavily involved in the Browns' game plan?
It may actually be preseason game 3 when they're more heavily involved. Sampson, particularly, has carried a heavy load this week in the joint practices. He's been up with a lot of the starters, which may indicate that you may not see a lot of him against Philly because they may be saving him for when they play more of their starters next week against the Rams. Regardless of when we see a heavy dose of Sampson in this preseason, you're going to see a heavy dose of him in the regular season, and that's certainly what matters more. SEC Player of the Year, a little bit undersized. He can play, and I'm really curious to see how he translates to the NFL game. If you win Player of the Year in the SEC as a running back, that's a crown. That's a crown that you can hold high on your head. Fannin's a little bit more interesting. I think he's a little bit more of a project, but I think he's going to play a ton in 2 tight end sets with David Njoku. Kevin Stefanski loves tight ends. We saw a heavy dose of 2 tight end sets early in his time here. Kind of got away from it a little bit at times with Deshaun when they were trying to make the Deshaun thing work. Now I think, certainly he's got ability as a pass catcher, a little bit raw, needs a little bit of polish on him. I don't know. I'm not sure what to anticipate what to see from him this weekend. But again, I think he's going to hold a role in the regular season, and that's what matters more.
Yeah, I agree. Right now, I think they got Dylan Sampson on starters reps. And they're like, listen, we already got one running back and Judkins out. We don't know when he's coming back. We're going to lean heavily on the run game and what we want to do. I'm cool. Running backs, they hit the ground running. He might not see more time until that 3rd week. And I actually agree with Jason. I think Harold Fannin Jr., I think right now what he's trying to figure out is they got him learning multiple positions. Tight end is already the most difficult position to translate into the league because you have to learn how to block and you have to be able to pass block. You got to be able to run block in the run game, but you also have to be able to run crisp routes, catch the football. So it's a 2-layered thing to learning that position, and they have him learning a lot of positions: H-back, some fullback, some other different things like that, splitting them out wide. So there's a lot of stuff being thrown at him. I think he's going to be a big part of what they want to do. I think you may not see these guys really get comfortable to the regular season, which is okay, because as long as they get them reps in the regular season and they start to progress and show that tape, I'm okay with it.
He's a weapon, G. And if you go back to Harrison Bryant, they put him in an H-back role in the lead blocker. He was even the backup quarterback.
Fannin might be the emergency quarterback tomorrow.
Read
if
option.
Gabriel doesn't play. Seriously. He played it a little bit at Bowling Green.
Yeah, he could. I mean, maybe he turns into the quarterback sneaker like Bryant was at times. But I do think that he's versatile, and he could really evolve. I don't know he's there yet. He could really evolve into a weapon for this team.
I was frustrated against Carolina that neither of those two was featured more. And it was in the moment. And sometimes you need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture to kind of understand why. And I wanted to see them, just like I wanted to see more Schlesinger, more Mason Graham. And then I kind of realized, I think part of the reason they weren't featured that frequently in the Carolina game, and the same reason I don't think they'll be featured that much in this Philadelphia game, is they're going to be featured in the actual regular season, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
And we saw in week 1, Shedeur looked really good in the preseason, but all the concepts that Cleveland called and ran were as basic. And it's nothing against Shedeur. I'm just saying it's a basic offense in week 1 of the preseason against the basic defense. I don't think whether it's Dylan Gabriel on Saturday against Philadelphia, if it's Tyler Huntley, it's even more basic, that they're going to run just essentially the most basic version of their offense that is possible to run in an actual game situation. I think Kevin Stefanski has bigger plans for Sampson, has bigger plans for Fannin, and isn't willing to show other teams specifically how he wants and envisions using them when the real lights turn on September 6th against Cincinnati. So I think it's actually a good thing for those two, and it's a good sign of their progression. If they don't play in this preseason game all that much, that Stefanski already feels pretty confident he's seen enough not to need to force them in there just to get certain reps that he's already seen in practice.
Yeah. I'm okay with it. I think sometimes you got to bring them along a little slower. But I expect them to be major contributors on the offense. I expect them to be guys that they lean on.
Before we wrap up here, we did not do this in the YouTube show, which you can go back and find a abbreviated version of our YouTube show today because we had some technical difficulties launching. If Dylan Gabriel plays on Saturday against Philadelphia, we did this for Shedeur. We predicted his stat line, Jason. What would you predict Dylan Gabriel's stat line to look like?
Last week for Shedeur, I think I said 10 of 14, 130-ish yards and a touchdown. Dylan, I think I said 14 of 20 for Shedeur. Dylan, I think will be probably in the 13 of 18 range, 118, 120 yards, a touchdown and a pick.
I got him 11 of 19, 1 touchdown, 1 pick.
I'm going to go more completions, more attempts, and maybe even fewer yards. I think we're going to see a ton of checkdowns. I'm going 16 to 27 for 108 yards, 1 tutty, 1 pick.
27.
Whew. Cook.
Stefanski lets his quarterbacks throw the ball in the preseason, especially if you're not going to feature Dylan Sampson and run the ball.
I got him at 162.
A lot of checkdowns.
162.
Awesome. All right, Ant. We're going to head to break now. When we come back, it is time to break down the Cleveland Cavaliers' upcoming schedule. They got a ton of national TV games, but did the schedule makers do them any favors? We'll tell you that and more coming up on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We spent the first part of today's show talking about the Cleveland Browns. Let's switch our attention over to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The 64-win and second-round exited Cleveland Cavaliers have gotten their upcoming schedule for the 25-26 season. And if you don't like the Cavs on local TV, you are in luck because they have 24 nationally televised games this season. Also on the schedule, Jason, 14 back-to-backs. The most of any team in the league was 16. The fewest of any team in the league was 12, so the Cavs fall right in that middle sweet spot. They have 6 games on holidays, which is 2 more than last year. And I thought it was at least worth noting, but they finished the season, their final 33 games, 20 are on the road, so 13 at home, 20 on the road. Jason, we did this with the NFL. When the Browns schedule comes out, did the schedule makers do the Browns any favors? Let's pivot this and ask about the Cavs. How did the schedule makers give the Cavs and help them out this season, or did they do them dirty?
No, I covered the NBA for 10 years, and for the most part, schedules are schedules. Every schedule has rough pockets. Every schedule has a little bit of a breathe easier part. The curious part to me is they have 4 days off in early March, highly unusual in the NBA. The one thing I like that I think the NBA needs to do more often, the NBA is obsessed with rest now. They're obsessed with trying to get these guys proper sleep at night. There's a couple instances where they're in Miami for 3 days. I mean, I know it's Miami, but they play both games at one time, and I think that's a good thing. I've been advocating that for a while. It's almost like a baseball series. You go and you stay in one place for 3 or 4 days. You get these guys, I mean, it's Miami, but theoretically they get a full night's sleep in a bed rather than landing in a city at 3 a.m. and only getting a few hours. Play both games, and then you're done with that commitment to that city, and then you move on to the next one. I think they have one in Philly like that this year and one in Miami like that. I think they need to be looking for avenues to do that more often in the NBA. Ending the schedule more on the road than at home isn't ideal, but again, that 4-day break at the start of March helps.
It's huge.
Yeah, usually in March is when guys are really starting to drag a little bit. That's when you hit the wall. So if you can get them off their feet, gets them some time at home and rest, I'm sure they'll take a couple off days. They can really dig in, though, with a couple of practice days at that point. As you get into the grind of an NBA season, a lot of times you can't practice. We saw that last year. You're trying to get these guys rest in the little pockets when you can. So getting those 4 days at the start of March, they can get a couple of really good practices in before you start that final stretch toward the end of the regular season.
You know, I think the fans, more on the fans' perspective of it, you know, they got a bunch of national TV games. And so everybody's like, favorable. This is favorable for me. I love it. I get to watch the Cavs, and it gives you that validation. People always say, locally, you could probably watch the Cavs, every single Cavs game, if you get your package together. But people want to see those national televised games because they want to see the national perspective. 24 national TV games. The big one is you finally get a Christmas Day. You're back in Christmas Day against the Knicks. And basically what the league has said is, all right, we'll look around. Pacers is out of here. We don't believe in the Sixers. The Milwaukee Bucks look like they're on the decline. And you look around the league, the Cavs, they're saying, yeah, it's the Cavs in the Knicks two-man race. We putting our money on those two guys. So I think fans will be excited about it. And people, it's always good to see national TV games. So I think people is excited about what the Cavs can do. It ain't the playoffs though.
Yeah.
But they'll take the national TV.
It's also cool. We're on WKYC right now. 5 of those nationally televised games are via Peacock, which is also part of the NBC family. So basically, we're now brothers with the Cavaliers. So that's pretty cool.
What a reach. That was the craziest reach of all time.
I do think, though, in all seriousness, it's kind of hard for the NBA schedule makers to do a team dirty versus not, because you know exactly who you're going to play. You're going to play the West Conference teams twice.
Right.
You play your division teams 4 times. You're going to play the other teams twice. Like, you already know who you're going to play. You already know where you're going to play them. You play a home and home with each team. It comes more down to, are you getting an absurd amount of back-to-backs? Who are you playing off those back-to-backs? And I saw a graphic on Twitter from real Cavs fans this morning who said the Cavs, who have 14 back-to-backs, are playing 17 times against teams in the second night of a back-to-back. So they have a +3 advantage, which is the second highest mark in all of basketball. And I think those little things over the course of the season do matter. So if we're saying, did they do them a favor? Did they do them dirty? I think, frankly, they had a pretty favorable schedule. Obviously, you want to end the season with more games at home than on the road. But I go back to last March, Jason. They were playing every other night.
Yeah.
And to have 4 days off in the month of March before that final playoff stretch, that's huge.
And one thing that doesn't really get discussed is where Cleveland is located in relation to other. You're an hour flight away. So when you're going on a road trip, if you're leaving from Cleveland, you can be in a lot of spots in an hour. Whereas if you're in Miami or you're in Portland and you got to get somewhere, it's a lot longer of a flight, and that adds up. And it's something that doesn't really get talked about. But if you look at like the miles flown every year that these teams have to fly, Cleveland is normally like middle of the pack, even toward the top, because most of the flights they're easy to get to. You can get to DC, you can get to Charlotte.
You split the country in half. So even if you go west, it's half.
If you go west, you've got a day off before, and you've got a day to recover because everybody goes at the same time. But for a lot of these back-to-backs, if you're at home and then you're leaving, you're only going an hour. You're going to Charlotte. You're going to New York.
Right.
You're going to Boston. You can get to a lot of places hour and 15 minutes.
I feel like if you play for this Thunder, I feel like everywhere is 3 hours. Like you're at Oklahoma City, you're like, all right, well, I got to go to Portland. That's kind of far. I got to go to New York. That's super far. I got to go to Miami. That's crazy far.
Well, imagine if you're in Miami and you got to go on a West Coast road trip and you're hitting up Salt Lake City and Denver. Yeah. Last thing on the Cavs schedule, they obviously have the Christmas game. They're part of ESPN's opening Wednesday night doubleheader. They also, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, where the whole world shuts down, they have basketball nonstop, a 2:30 home tip-off against the defending NBA champion OKC Thunder. The only time all season Cleveland welcomes OKC to town. It is a nationally televised game on Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the primetime 2:30 window spot, which I think shows what the league thinks of these two teams and how exciting those matchups were last season.
And by the way, people say they don't care. Oh, they will care then. Just for that game.
I mean, that's all well and good, but I'm looking forward to rivalry week and the Charlotte Hornets. What a stupid. How could you promote that?
I think it has to be,
Steelers and the Charlotte Hornets.
well, it has to be Lonzo versus LaMelo. That's the only thing I could think of. But
How about Orlando? Like, if you want to try and put some sort of budding rivalry in there, how about Orlando? Like, there's how about I'll take Atlanta. Like, give me something besides Charlotte. And then to promote it, like if you run out of teams and you got to play Charlotte, okay, fine.
But don't put on the graphic.
What about Detroit?
I know,
They could have gave us Detroit.
Could have given Detroit. Detroit would have been a better
lot of
option.
better options, but apparently the Cavs are rivals with the Charlotte Hornets, and we will find that
This is
out.
wild.
How much
made that up?
Now
animosity
you know.
is in that matchup. All right, Ant, let's hit a break. When we come back, we're going to review CJ Kayfus' first 2 weeks in the majors. Have you been impressed by the rookie? And if so, how much? We'll tell you in 2 minutes right here on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. You are taking a live look at beautiful Progressive Field, where later tonight the Cleveland Guardians will host the Atlanta Braves on WKYC. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. You can find this game right here on WKYC. Jason, it's been about 2 weeks since CJ Kayfus has made his much anticipated MLB debut. Saturday will be the official 2-week mark. But what have you thought of the young rookie's first 11 games with the big league squad?
Yeah, obviously 11 games isn't very much to draw a conclusion on, but the one thing that I would say about him is he doesn't look overmatched. He looks like he belongs, which is about the best thing you can say on a guy 11 games in. 709 OPS is a little bit below league average, but still, you're talking about the first 11 games of a guy's career. I'm not going to bog you down with a lot of nerdy stats, but he's excelling at launch angle sweet spot percentage, which you're going to say, what does that mean? It means that he's hitting the ball at angles that usually results in really good things. He's above average at that. He's above average in barrel percentage. Again, what's that mean? It means he's hitting the ball really hard. When he makes contact, he's making great contact. Those are the types of indicators that you want to see early on. If you're looking beyond just the numbers, if you want to look at more extensive data, we need a bigger sample size, obviously, than just 11 games, but just going off early indications, when he hits the ball, he hits it really hard, and he's hitting it at angles that typically result in really good things.
Hey, listen, I just want to keep getting him more at bats. He has a good swing. He looks like he has a good approach at the plate. He looks the part. Like Jason said, he's not up there swimming. He is not, waving at pitches outside of the zone. His numbers don't look stellar, but at the end of the day, these are the young guys that we want to develop. I always want to see the young guys come up here because that's what the Guardians are. They move guys at a certain point in time where they're overpriced and they're not going to be able to sign them. So they go to a youth movement and move those guys for picks. This is one of the guys that everyone is excited to see. Let's start the development and give him more at-bats.
Yeah, you say the numbers may not jump off the screen. It's been 11 games, small sample size, but even a 709 OPS, Jason, which is slightly below league average, it's
pretty good.
In the upper echelon for the Cleveland Guardians right now, guys.
Yeah.
They have a lot of guys who are regulars in their lineup with an OPS sub 709. Granted, small sample size. But I think the one thing that's interesting, Jason, I wonder if you could touch on this a little more. When I was doing some research for this, I came to the finding that in 2021, the Guardians as an organization, and Chris Anthony talked about how they changed the traits they look for in hitters. And Kayfus is the first fully draft-to-debut player since they changed the traits they're looking for. And some other guys since include Bazana, Chase DeLauder, Jace Lavalette, the guy they just drafted, Rafi Velasquez. They traded for Brito and Manzardo. But Kayfus, to me, looks comfortable. He looks like a major league hitter, even though I can't stand his jersey number. Hopefully he gets to pick a real jersey number next year. But he looks like a real major league hitter. And I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, kind of hopeful, that maybe the change in approach for the traits that the Guardians front office was looking for in their power bats will now actually start producing some guys who are real contributors in the lineup.
Well, in order to understand what they've moved toward, you have to understand what they're moving away from. And they compiled a ton of middle infield type, high contact rate guys, not a ton of power. And I guess that they correlated that to their pitching, which was control guys, and they thought they could get to more velo. If you get a lot of high contact guys, maybe you can get them to more power. It didn't work. They've accumulated all these middle infielders, and none of them have been great. Now they're sort of transitioning back to guys who can hit the ball out of the ballpark. There's going to be some swing and miss associated with that. In today's game, you have to live with that because the data is overwhelming. You have to be able to hit the ball out of the ballpark if you're going to have success in the postseason. And that's obviously the key for everybody.
That's what Kayfus has done so far. 1 homer in 11 games. Hopefully he gets to 4, 5, 6 maybe by the end of the season. But that's going to wrap it up for the WKYC edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. If you like what you saw here, check us out on YouTube, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. 2 hours of Cleveland sports, including post-game shows. We'll see you later. Peace.